If you visit the Cathedral of St. Elizabeth in the ancient heart of Europe and you walk past the velvet ropes up to the high altar, you will find a tiny hair-thin line running through the lime mortar of the northern transept. It is less than 2 millimeters wide. It has been there for years. To the casual tourist, it is an expected blemish of age. To a structural engineer, it is a line of text written in the brutal language of gravity. Ancient stones do not behave like modern materials. They do not possess the elasticity of steel. They do not have the internal chemical mesh of reinforced concrete. They do not bend. They do not stretch. A Gothic cathedral is an immense multi-thousand-ton game of architectural Jenga. It is held together entirely by compression, the sheer downward weight of hand-carved limestone, pressing against hand-carved limestone. Every arch, every flying buttress, every ribbed wall is a frozen explosion of lateral forces, perfectly balanced on the assumption that the earth beneath it is immovable, eternal foundation, an absolute coordinate. But the earth is not solid, and it's certainly not eternal. Beneath the cobblestones of any historic city lies a fragile, chaotic archive of human existence. Turn the soil back and you will find Roman foundations built on top of Celtic settlements, medieval wooden piles driven into swampy river banks, plague pits, forgotten wells, and collapsed cellars from centuries of urban reinvention. It is a loose, waterlogged sponge of history. And in the winter of 2018, deep underneath that cathedral altar, 60 feet down into that exact dark, treacherous clay, a cylinder of steel weighing 400 tons was moving. It was an earth pressure balanced tunnel boring machine, a mechanical leviathan longer than a football field. Its circular face, studded with spinning tungsten carbide teeth, chewing through the underworld at a rate of 3 inches per hour. It was carving a metro tunnel 15 feet wide, creating a subterranean highway for thousands of commuters who had not yet been born. Think about the physical paradox of this geometry. Above sits 50,000 tons of brittle, priceless 15th century limestone that has spent 600 years settling into its muddy bed. Below is a self-inflicted void, a massive hollow pipe being punched through the dark mud, passing just inches from the cathedral's rotting timber foundation piles. If the ground beneath the cathedral slumps by even the thickness of a wedding ring, the archways lose their compression. The stone blocks begin to slide past one another. The ceiling vaulting above, designed to withstand centuries of winter winds, will instantly convert its own downward weight into a catastrophic sideway force. It will blow the walls outward, collapsing the entire monument into a mountain of dust in less than 4 seconds. In the control room, down in the mud, engineers watched digital monitors with white-knuckled intensity. The city could not stop growing. The train line had to go through. To build the future, they had to walk a subterranean tightrope, knowing that a single miscalculation would bury history. When a tunnel boring machine cuts through soil, it does not just take away dirt. It creates what engineers call a settlement throw. As the earth is scraped away into the belly of the machine, the surrounding ground naturally slumps downward and inward to fill the newly created vacancy. It is an immediate thermodynamic law of nature. The earth behaves like water flowing toward the empty space. To survive this, you cannot rely on conventional supports. You cannot build a steel pillar strong enough to prop up the faith of the Middle Ages from the inside of a mud hole. Instead, the engineers had to invent a process of active microscopic levitation. Imagine a heavy brick house built on top of a soft worn mattress. If you reach under the bed and pull a single coil spring out from inside that mattress, the surface collapses slightly and the brick house above cracks down its center line. But now imagine that before you pull that spring out, you slip an array of uninflated, ultra tough synthetic bladders between the mattress and the floorboards. The exact moment the mattress begins to sag, you pump liquid rubber into those bladders under immense pressure. They expand, offsetting the sag perfectly, keeping the top surface of the mattress completely flat. You have injected liquid airbags underneath the house, balancing it on a fluid cushion while the ground beneath it undergoes a controlled collapse. In the quiet terminology of geotechnical engineering, this is known as compensation grouting. Months before the giant tunnel boring machines ever breached the perimeter of the cathedral, engineers sank a massive vertical shaft outside the historic district. From the belly of that shaft, they drilled a horizontal fan of narrow steel tubes, hundreds of them, threading them through the clay like an invisible metal spider web. This web was positioned precisely in the narrow margin of mud between the roof of the future metro line and the ancient basement of the church. High above mountain on the Gothic arches and the stone pillars, laser reflective prisms track the building's position. Every single second, automated total stations shot beams of light at these prisms, measuring the coordinate of the stone down to 1/15 of a millimeter. As the boring machine crept forward downstairs, displacing the ancient soil, the laser would detect the first microscopic hint of a downward shrinkage. A movement invisible to the human eye, but fatal if left unchecked. Instantly, the data closed the loop. Computer control valves down in the shaft snapped open. A thick, specialized slurry mix of bentonite, microfine cement, and chemical hardness was injected into the steel web at 70 times the pressure of our atmosphere. The liquid grout blasted out of tiny valves in the underground pipes, tearing into the soft clay, expanding and solidifying within minutes. It did not just fill the empty space left by the tunnel machine, it actively lifted. It pushed upward against the underside of the world, countering the pull of the gravity with an equal, opposite, and perfectly metered hydraulic shove. The cathedral did not realize its foundation was being carved out because it was floating on a bed of synthetic high-pressure stone. We walk through our modern metropolises with an implicit comfortable faith in the pavement beneath our boots. We look at the glass towers, the brick apartments, and the heavy stone monuments, and we perceive them as a permanent fixtures of reality. We treat the ground as an absolute truth, but it's an illusion. Beneath the streets of London, of Paris, of Rome, and New York, the earth is not a foundation. It is a shifting, dynamic labyrinth. It is a Swiss cheese of old brick sewers, abandoned tube lines, forgotten burial vaults, and screaming transit arteries. The stability we experience on the surface is not a natural state of rest. It is a continuous artificial performance. We have entered a strange, unacknowledged era where our ancestors' grandest structural achievements are now held aloft by constant calculated interventions of machines that could never have dreamed of. The ancient spires that reach for the heavens are preserved by industrial fluid forced into the dark mud by computer algorithms. It reveals a profound pattern about our relationship with time. Progress is not about whipping away what came before to make room for what comes next. And it is not about leaving the past untouched in a dead, sterile glass case. True mastery is the subterranean tightrope. It is the ability to slide the roaring metallic mechanism of the future directly underneath the fragile sacred architecture of our history without causing a single candle on the altar above to flicker. The next time you step onto an underground train and feel the carriage lean into a dark subterranean curve, do not just look at your phone. Listen closely to the screech of the steel wheels against the rails. Somewhere above your head, right now, an ancient stone arch is resting its entire crushing weight on an invisible cushion of chemical grout, trusting our technology to hold up its world.